The Jewish cemetery in the center of Berlin is small and mostly hidden by apartment buildings. Part of it has been converted to a park and is open to the public. Jewish gravestones dating back hundreds of years line the walkway. But in a far corner, fenced off from the public, is an ivy mound containing the remains of over 2,500 people. Most were killed during the final weeks of World War II and buried here by necessity.
At that time, the biggest problem in Berlin was to bury the people, which bodies lying here all over in the streets and in provisional graves.
One of the bodies thrown hurriedly into the mass grave at the Jewish cemetery was Heinrich Müller, the head of the Gestapo. Müller had played a central role in deporting Jews to extermination camps. He disappeared after the war, and his body was never found. Then, in the 1960s, a Berlin emergency worker stepped forward and said he had found Müller's body in the courtyard of the Air Ministry directly after the war. Johannes Tuchel of the Berlin Memorial to German Resistance spent many years researching the Müller case and is convinced he is buried in the Jewish cemetery.
We put together the lists, the records of the central offices, the records of the cemeteries, the evidence who was given by people who saw Müller in the last time, and so it gave a frame to a picture that Heinrich Müller died on May 2nd, or in the night from May 1st to May 2nd, 1945, that he was buried for a short time in the garden of the Air Ministry and then brought to the Jewish cemetery at the Große Hamburger Straße.
News that Müller was buried here, within sight of the gravestone of the Jewish philosopher Moses Mendelssohn, shocked the Jewish community. Some call for Müller's remains to be exhumed, but Jewish leaders oppose this, saying the dead shall rest eternally.
The Jewish community decided not to do anything on the cemetery. I think it's a good idea because Müller was one of maybe 2,400 to 2,700 bodies in 16 mass graves. So it's impossible to exhume one body.
Müller would be 114 years old today if he were alive. The big question is whether he survived the war and lived out his life in hiding.
The Jewish cemetery is the second oldest in Berlin, and it is deeply symbolic. The Jewish community is now leaving this discussion about Müller to rest, but the rumors about his final resting place live on. PDolle JN1, Berlin.